I had them, but of course. Right.
Because I thought he had done it.
And why are you,
Hockey tournament.
what hockey tournament?
Unless you want to do them both after.
Stand. Flag. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Will the superintendent please call the roll for the special meeting of the Woburn School Committee for August 10th, 2022?
Ms. Chisholm?
Here.
Ms. Cormier?
Present.
Ms. Crowley?
Present.
Mr. Kissel?
Here.
Mr. Lipset?
He was unable to attend.
Mr. Mulrennan?
Present.
Dr. Wells?
Here. Okay, so the special meeting is really dealing with two items, and they're under the reports and presentation of the superintendent and staff. The first is the review and approval of handbooks. So you all should have received the handbooks. Specifically, we're looking for approval of the Woburn Athletic Coaches, Student Athlete Handbook and the Woburn High School Handbook. The other handbooks, we don't necessarily approve. We don't have to, but the high school one we do. And since this falls under the high school, we thought it would be appropriate. The coach's handbook that you have is for your information only. That's staff.
Oh, okay.
Yep. And the elementary and middle school handbooks, again, you can give comments and so forth, but we don't approve those. Those are not required. So if anybody had any questions or comments, Mr. Duran here is here. Mr. Duran, did you want to give sort of an overview of the handbooks for the athletes?
Well, I just like to go over. We've spent. Courtney has spent a ton of time with myself, Matt, and Bob DeSonia has helped us out a great deal with just going through an overview of our handbook. We have had a handbook, the school handbook. Years ago, we had an athletic handbook, but it seemed like it was going back and forth. So I believe it was Bob Norton that we just put it into one. We used most of the MIA handbook goes for our handbook, right? So any of the athletic rules that we had were basically rules that came from the MIA. So we kind of just cleaned everything up, kind of put it in writing, and Courtney did a terrific job with handling everything. And then we had Mike Joyce go through it to make sure everything was legally in good shape, and this is where we are today.
Okay. Thank you. Superintendent, did you want to add?
Yeah, well, I think Mr. Duran captured it. Really what we're trying to do is memorialize current practice and make it transparent to the students, the student athletes, the families, to the coaches, what the expectations are as we head into the fall season. So that's really the reason for tonight's special meeting, because the fall season kicks off, I believe, next Thursday, if I'm right. So we want to make sure that we are doing what's in the best interest of all people that are involved in the athletic department.
Okay. Did anybody have any questions for Mr. Duran?
Go ahead.
I saw Mr.
Yeah, I'm going to find it.
I know, but I saw Mr. Mulrennan first.
Yeah, I think members are probably doing the same as I am, but I guess to the chair, to Mr. Duran, in the past, Jim, we've had some concerns brought forward with religious factors involving practices and games attendance. It's probably in here somewhere, but religious matters. If a student's not supposed to be doing things religiously from their religion or particular times, it might be in here. Anybody sees it, just let me know.
Talking about attendance on
It's the
6 and
attendance?
7?
Yeah, that that's an excused absence if they have
Okay, as long as somebody sees it, I'm fine with it.
to. Yeah.
Family or religious reasons for prior notification and approval whenever
Okay.
possible.
There's also an a non-discrimination statement that's
That's the one
specifically
that covers it,
religion in
right
it.
at the right at the
So
back
that's
here,
the
right?
one. And then specifically, I think it's excusing mandatory attendance.
Okay,
Through the chair.
Yep, thank you.
there it is.
Mr. Chisholm, did you?
I had a couple, but I don't know if they were answered. The one about the grades, like if they are failing grades, do they, because it said they may not be able to participate, but shouldn't that say shall? Because we should put education before we do anything else. And not make exceptions for a kid that's failing to still be able to play.
Matt, could you repeat that question?
Yeah, sure.
I was going to say, I believe that Mr. Duran and I went through the questions today. I think that's the one referring to it, that we're following the MIAA rule in terms of eligibility and regarding the academic, and so the language was taken straight from the MIA handbook, and why it wasn't adjusted.
I mean, but can we do something above that, though? I mean, if
Yeah.
we want to, I mean, that's,
Yeah.
I
So,
just think it's
yeah,
important
if I
that,
can, Mr. Duran, didn't Woburn used to have a stricter standard for athletes in the past? You would obviously know better than us, but I seem to recall we might have had a strict academic standard.
Yes, we did. We used to have 25%, 25 credit hours.
Yeah,
So when Joe Finnegan was in, when he came over, he changed that to 20, which
Yeah.
is equal with the MIAA.
okay.
So the thing with, when you had 25, even if a student was below or went to 20, the principal couldn't waive the fact that if you had a class that didn't meet 5 times a week, it only met 4, right? So if you had somebody that was in special ed services who only met, saw the person that he would look for help for the 3, he would only have it 4 days a week, he wouldn't be eligible because he wouldn't meet the 25%. It would only be like 23.5. So that's why Joe moved it back to 20, which is the MIAA handbook, 25 credit hours. So they have to meet 5 days a week, 4 classes.
well, my question was more
Pass.
on grade. You know, if someone's not.
4 full-time subjects.
All right.
So I think the question really is about past grades.
Great.
Like, what,
You know,
are there standards about not just the number of classes, but passing the classes?
It's the passing of the classes of the 4 full-time that meet 5 days a week.
Right, so they do, because it just said that they, may, it doesn't say they shall be. Because if someone isn't passing, math and history, I don't think they should be,
Right, so, again,
yeah.
I'm just doing,
Interpretation.
So
Yeah.
It
if
seems
I,
like it's covered maybe earlier in that
Yeah.
if you're passing,
Yeah.
you have to get 25, you have to get 20 credits.
yeah,
That part, I think, covers that, it sounds like.
And I-
That you must pass it.
you have to pass to get to the 20 credits, is that correct, Mr. Duran?
You have to earn them.
Yeah.
That is correct.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
And
But I mean,
That is
just figure
correct.
during the year they're playing,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden you find out they're failing 2 of their classes. They're attending the classes,
Yeah.
but they're failing. It doesn't mean that they're,
Right,
Yeah.
and-
you know what I
But
mean?
would they get the credits? I don't,
Well, at the end of the grading point.
right. It's
Yeah.
always the grading before it.
but it's based on the,
Yeah.
yeah.
They have to pass 20 credit hours, 4 full-time subjects, to be eligible.
Yeah.
So if they could still probably have 2 Fs,
Yeah.
but they would have 4 other classes that would make them eligible. That met 5 times a week.
Yeah. So, I don't know, as a committee, we're usually trying to encourage that parents have an input, and I would think, it's really up to the parent, if the child is not performing well, to maybe make a decision about what they should and shouldn't be doing, because we do not have restrictions on clubs, other activities regarding grades, so I think, we set a minimal standard that's MIAA, but obviously a parent can have a higher standard, and we would expect parents to be more concerned about their individual students' performance than, the football coach or the baseball coach. So I think this is consistent sort of with our philosophy. Are you all set?
No, I just,
Yep.
and for the signed receipt to come back, are those received prior to the kids starting? Like, they get it the day they come for tryouts or whatever, that it comes back before they actually start, correct? So just so that somebody doesn't say, oh, well, I didn't know that happened, but I've been on the team for 3 weeks, and
No, I think you have a
so
distribution
who's
process.
responsible for making sure, is it on the Jimmy that everybody
Matt, can you
returns?
repeat that?
Yeah, so it's a logistical question,
Yeah.
really. It's about the paper copy coming back and making sure that that comes back in a timely manner.
Okay, so this fall season, will be the only in question, right? Because we're kind of late in the process. So we'll make sure we'll have, everybody's going to read, we're going to have a course that we have that every kid is going to watch. And in that paperwork that we have, we'll make sure that we have in that paperwork that they've all read the handbook. Now, they will also in the winter, that'll be on Family ID. As of right now, that is on Family ID that you're signing off that you have read through the student handbook for athletics.
Okay.
For parents and students?
Right,
Okay.
right.
And obviously, we'll have it placed on the high school website, for,
Yeah, it'll be
yep,
posted.
yep. Okay. You all set, Mr.
Yep.
Chisholm? Ms. Cormier?
I had a few questions. I know Ms. Young actually already had looked at some of them, and there was the concussion protocol that we were talking about. Mr. Duran is working in progress with that because it is referred here, and it's not actually in our policy manual. It's just on the website. And I had some questions around the protected classes, because in some places it says pregnancy or pregnancy status, but I think it should say parental status. And I think that we should probably just make that consistent across the board in all of our, because I noticed that in the policy manual as well, different just ways it's said, and I just want to make sure that everything is consistent. I know it's at the bottom, Courtney updated the bottom of the manual here. But otherwise, everything looks good, and I sent everything right to
Okay.
Ms. Young.
So you're good? Okay. Anyone else?
I just really wanted to thank the administration for doing this handbook, because the people that are watching from home, this ties in a lot of, has our general vision of what we see Woburn athletics to be, and then it really tries to address just about everything from attendance and academic policies to locker room safety, to what's allowed in the hallways in terms of not skateboarding, and really, talking about student injuries that might happen during athletics. So I just think it's a very thorough handbook, and I'm in favor of it.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have any questions? I wonder maybe if this, go ahead. I was just going to say, maybe Mr. Duran gave a brief overview about how it, was formulated, but maybe the superintendent can just talk about how this came to be.
Yeah, well, I'll work backwards. And I think Ms. Cry said, so this came to be, and I pushed the pebble, and it kind of snowballed, and then I went on vacation. And so I want, Courtney and Maureen and Mr. Duran and Mr. Martin have really worked hard over the past couple weeks to get to this point. Again, because of the timeliness of next week's football season. So I want to thank them for doing the work. This came to pass, obviously, we always want to reflect on what can we do better and be transparent. So throughout all of last year, Mr. Duran and I had multiple conversations about the athletic department and looking to improve. And then one of the areas that we thought would make it more transparent would be a student athlete handbook. And so we started this process, was it late June? And it just kind of gained traction. And so the idea is, again, to memorialize current practice and make sure that we're transparent and clear with what the expectations for all of our student athletes and coaches and families and the city.
Good.
So-
Good. So before we vote, I wonder if Mr. Duran could just give an overview of the development of this Women Athletic Coaches Handbook. We're not going to vote on that, but just talk about that, just a brief overview of that.
Yeah, I think it's just it's an overview on basically what you know, right? Like what you think everybody knows, what they're supposed to do as their position, from giving out rules, having a meeting, having talking to the kids about everything that comes as being a coach, being a teacher, the fields, the courts, their extension of the classroom, how to act. So I think a lot of those things are in there just to remind us of the coaches. It's a checklist, what they need to do, what they need to make sure. And it's just a refresher. It's good for everybody to have in front of them, and it's not. We're not. Stirring something up to make a science exam. We're just. It's everything that we have in front of us, and just to have them make sure they can check the box and make sure everything's going smoothly.
Yeah. I think it's also beneficial because we have a lot of coaches that maybe not classroom experienced, so to speak, and so just having them be familiar with how things should go, I think, is very important. We know a lot of the Friends group support hiring coaches and so forth that we don't necessarily see, so they can see the rules and then there's no excuses. So I think this is a good addition. Anything else? Mr. Kissel?
On that point, I've brought it up a couple of times in the Friends of groups. I mean, it sounds like there's always the same answer, which is it's covered. So to the coaches, I didn't see the last page here. The coaches, are they signing off on this too?
Yep.
Okay. So, last page here. So the Friends of groups aren't employees of the system.
Right.
They're still signing it because they coach.
Yep.
But I guess I always want to know, like, under what authority? Like, there's no evaluations being done. There's no things like that. So I guess we're allowing these people to come in and kind of be part of the system, but they're not.
Yeah. We're not paying them, but they are representatives of the school system.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mr. Duran, you can add.
Yeah, so they still have to be queried. Anybody that comes in as a volunteer, even if they're paid or not paid, even if they come just to be involved in the program, they're checked through human resources. So they have to do a query, they have to do fingerprints, they have to do everything that comes along with it. Have to be certified as a coach. They have it's like a 3-year window where they can get certified. It's almost in the teacher's certification. They have a few years to start it and then finish it. So, and we're on them about that all the time. So it's just something, like I said, just to check the box and make sure. And it's always good to have those Friends group coaches or volunteers, because more eyes are better than not enough.
Yeah.
And the important thing is now they'll all know what's expected. So I think we've laid it out. So that's good. Anything else from the committee? So do I have a motion to approve the student athlete handbook?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries. Any other questions for Mr. Duran, or we can send him on his way?
I actually wanted to, Mr. Duran, you talked about having some operational support after school. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, I think it's the transition part. Like, we do have a lot of teachers in the system, right? So a lot of our coaches are teachers. I would say a large majority of our coaches are teachers, but some of them are at the elementary school, some of them are at the middle school, some of them are, So I think just in general of supervision from, the transition of kids coming from the classroom down to the locker room area to hanging in the cafeteria area before the coaches get there, right? So, it's very difficult for the assistant principals to be in charge of them. The coaches sometimes are there, sometimes the coaches are not there, right? So, we have 3 or 4 coaches that are there at 1 o'clock. Their jobs are allow them to get there. But some of our classroom teachers, even in the building, they can't get down there until 2:05, 2:10. So there's a lot of time that the kids maybe not getting into the locker room, but they're in that area, right? So I think a little bit of supervision that if we could just to see how that would work. You have the after school kids who hang around for the after school bus. They're hanging around also. So it would be good to have some type of supervision down there to move kids along that are not supposed to be in the area, and to have an eye on the kids that are coming and going, male or female athletes. So, just the thoughts.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to flesh it out a little bit. We talked about having probably people from the high school, because they would be there, paid at an hourly rate of something, and they would report direct to Mr. Duran, and we would figure out how many hours, what it would look like. Particularly, certain seasons have more people engaged and so forth. So, and see what it looks like this year to try to help to facilitate what he's describing and alleviate some of that unstructured time. So we had talked about $25 an hour. Again, no one's going to, get rich doing any of these things, but it would just be another way to help support the coaches and the kids and Mr. Duran.
Go ahead. Mr.
So
Kessler.
how many people, I mean, obviously we have to figure out what it looks like based on the season, how many student athletes there are. But my guess is they're not just all hanging in the calf, right? They're not being told that. They're outside, they're on the tennis court, they're just all over the place. So how would 1, 2, 3, 4 people?
This is inside.
I think, did you hear that at all?
Sorry.
Yeah, so the supervision would be somebody in the area where people are, right? So you have the girls side of the locker room, and you have the boys side of the locker room. But you also have the wrestling gymnastics room. Kids want to come down, they want to get dressed because, field hockey, they're always the first one. They get the first time on the field. So they go, and football goes. They go right when they get down there, they go. So, I think it's, the fall would be one that would be a trial or a pilot program where we can see, does it help? Does it, make sure we're having some type of supervision on kids all the time, right? I mean, I think it would be helpful, and then we see how it goes from there. If it's something that it's redundant or we don't think we need it, then we go in a different direction. But I just think the last few years, COVID was probably the best because we didn't have. Nobody could hang out indoors, right? Nobody could hang inside.
I don't think it was the best though.
Quote that
So
in
it was
paper.
easy. It was pretty easy to monitor. So, but the last year, it became more difficult because you have kids that are, wanting to hang out, wanting to be with their friends, they don't want to go home, they want to stay around. So that's just something that we, I think we have over 700 kids that are doing in the fall. So that would be one to pilot in the fall, would be the most kids that we have in athletics.
So I think the plan is to have them in the building, and if people come back from the sports thing and have to go to the locker room, say, if they forgot something, there'd be somebody around, so they wouldn't be going to an empty building or something like that. So I think it sounds like it makes sense in just of having extra eyes, and as Mr. Durant said, we'll evaluate it, the thing. You'll go to finance.
Yeah, so would it be 1 hour a day? Is that what we're talking
Well,
about?
probably, the length of the practice.
Well, I would say that it probably would span a little bit longer. I think part of it is that you have group one that's practicing, and then while they're practicing, the next group of kids are coming in, and maybe coaches haven't arrived yet. And so then you have that group getting ready. So I would imagine, Mr. Ring can probably say the time frame, but it'd probably be the span of
Right,
practice
to
time.
6 or something like that.
Yeah.
It's going to be a long time.
Okay. So that the $25, that's something that you.
And it could be multiple people if they,
I suspect it would be, you need both genders.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I mean, yeah.
And as a pilot, the number of hours, I don't know. I don't, but to Ms. Young's point, the varsity teams sometimes practice before the junior varsity, so there's moving parts all the time, so.
Ms. Cormier?
How would the hourly rate compare to, say, like the lunch monitors or recess monitors? Would that be on par with, I mean, is it a similar kind of responsibility, like, or?
I think I would say that it might differ. I think that if we're having that go to
After hours.
teachers,
Yeah.
like to our teachers, that the rate would probably be slightly increased given their training.
Sure.
But I think the other thing is we're talking about after hours as opposed to during the school hours, so I think, I think that justifies the comp. But again, finance can deal with the financial aspect of it, and then we'll evaluate it. Mr. Duran can give a report, and we'll see where it goes.
So we're talking about like a person in the cafeteria, somebody that has access to open the locker rooms for kids, for
Yeah.
each of the locker rooms, so 3 or 4 people potentially? The gym
Two
would
people would be about $200
Probably
a day.
At most. I'm going to defer to
Yeah.
Mr. Duran.
$200 a day for 4 hours.
Yeah, I think the two people, a male and a female would be ideal. And I think it would be like, getting down there early at 1:50, so they're ready to go. When all of our student athletes show up, and they could be there for if somebody needs to use the bathrooms, somebody needs to get in. I mean, we have everything locked down pretty good now, so you have to kind of come and go, and we're trying to make it feasible for the kids to be coming and going, and the coaches having our coaches coming from. We just don't want to make it a tough situation for our coaches to come from elementary school where they're getting out at 2:45 and coming over to coach. We don't want to make sure that they're not saying they don't want to coach anymore, because it's really, we've been really helpful that we have a lot of coaches that are teachers.
Okay. So we'll hear more from finance and more about this as we go along. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Duran. Enjoy your trip.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay.
Take care.
Yeah, bye-bye.
Thanks for your support.
Yeah.
Bye.
Second item is, this is the hiring of a security consultant, and the superintendent can give some information on that.
Yeah, so the mayor convened a group, I think it was in May and June, where we met down at City Hall. I
Yeah.
think you were there.
Yep.
To kind of review school security, and we worked, police and fire, DPW, WTA, some principals were there, and just to kind of talk through what school security felt like and looked like in the Woburn Public Schools. And so it's an issue that Mayor Galvin took seriously, and he's contracted, or is going to contract, with an outside consultant. Ms. Ryan could speak to it if she, the meeting we've had a few meetings, but one of the meetings took place in my absence, and the mayor's going to pay for it, for an outside consultant to come in and just give recommendations on how we can make sure that we're keeping everybody safe.
Yeah. So originally it was put as an approval because we weren't sure where the money was coming from, but since the mayor's paying for it, there's no vote is necessary on this. Any questions?
Yeah, what kind of qualifications would this person have? Would they be, or Ms. Ryan, you were there, is it law enforcement? Is it security? Is it cybersecurity? What?
It's a security company, Smart
Oh, okay.
Security Partners.
Okay.
And so it is, the individual has a background in security and has done safety in a variety of different areas.
I see, okay. And so would this person have access to school buildings during the school day, or is it more like the facilities and
I
things
think
like that?
I think it's more facilities, and I think the intent is to have it happen sooner, like
Oh,
before
okay.
school even starts.
I see.
To-
So the person wouldn't be monitoring the school day to see what's happening within the school with children in them? It would be more like just looking at our doors and windows and things like that?
Right.
Okay,
Are they looking at our policies and procedures too? Yeah.
all right. Those are my only questions. I figured it was a city thing because we didn't get a job description.
Right.
And so, obviously, if the mayor wants to help with school security, I don't see any downside to that. Well, sounds great.
Chisholm?
Well, I just, so they'll come back with recommendations for us to do this. So I think that's great and gives us something to work on, but as long as he has a little pot of gold that he's going to be able to give to us to do the recommendations that they come back with, because the only problem I have with when people do these things, and they come back with this list, and people think because we're not doing the 74 things they think we should do, we're not following through it. So as long as there's money to back this up when they come back with the recommendations, that'd be great.
And I think the mayor's committed
Okay.
to this.
It's awesome.
Let me just say, Ms. Cormier, are you all set?
Yes, I am.
Just another question. Some security concerns may rise with mental health concerns of students and things like that. Is that going to be a part of the evaluation too?
So we talked about some of that, and we're looking at a wide scope, because I think there are different components to it, and part of coordinating this with Chief Rufo and with the schools is looking at all aspects, both the facilities and some of the social emotional needs.
That's great.
Okay.
So, I want to thank the mayor on the record that he met with interim assistant superintendent student services, Maureen Ryan, because the two are interconnected. So I'm optimistic.
Awesome.
Information is always good.
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, so that was just information. That's it. We don't have any other business. We'll have our regular meeting. If anybody has agenda items, feel free to put them. The superintendent and I will be working out the agendas for the upcoming meeting.
Awesome.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn.
Yeah. Enjoy the rest of your summer. Second on that?
Yeah, second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.